What are you making?
Just a little coffee for us.
A mocha loca crapper.
So I think it was the Blind Pig that had a drink on the menu called the Mocha Choca Frappuccino.
Just check that it's not off.
I don't think it is, but we bought. What was the barista one?
This is good though.
Oh, it's there.
Oh, that's delicious. It's aged.
Stick a bit in.
Stick a bit in.
Go for it.
Oh. So what's in it? Remind me.
Coffee.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Your choice of milk.
And you can. How do you make it alcoholic?
Rum.
Oh, rum ding dong.
Chuck a lot of rum.
Well, there's about 427 bottles of Trois Rivière up there.
Should we have a little Trois Rivière in a chocolate milkshake?
Trois Rivière the fuck out of it. You can do.
What a gift. That is banging.
Yeah. Just make it like a weaker version of a Trois.
I'll tell
A
you
weaker
what.
Trois. I think that's just sugar.
It is, mate, but it's so fucking tasty.
Like, I don't think it's actually rum.
No, it's not rum.
Yeah.
Sugar cane.
Just to add to the sugary goodness.
We tried it. Honestly, try it. It's... Just lick the bottle.
Crusted on the side.
That's loud, isn't it? How nice is that?
Really good. It's like nice molasses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't have that horrible bittery taste to it.
1997 Trois Rivière. Fuck off, man.
Fuck off.
Fuck off. That was that video in Russia.
Yeah, with Banam Jarami. You know who was filming it? Banam Jarami.
He was filming, yeah?
Yeah.
Who was the guy saying fuck off?
Banam Jarami.
That was him, yeah?
Yeah. So he was filming it and telling him to fuck off as well.
That was hilarious.
That was a great comp as well. That was probably one of the early fantastic crowds.
Dude.
Where
was it? In an auditorium or something?
It was like a concert. It's in a club. It was in this nightclub. And they put in like Flair Mania has, the sort of leveled stuff at the back to raise people up. And there was, I don't know, there was 700 people in there. All sponsored by Bacardi.
Hold that thought, I'm gonna
And that's what happened.
That's a crazy story.
It's amazing, huh?
I can't believe that happened, that's mad.
It was Bacardi Pro Flair, and they took the idea from King of the Ring of a revolving stage.
What do you mean a revolving stage?
So, King of the Ring, when that started, they basically built a fake stage on top of a stage, which was a massive revolving stage. So
like it was on hydraulics that turns around in a circle as you're
No,
performing?
you pull it, and they pushed it.
Nice.
So you'd literally just come out like...
Nice. I swear that was a TV show once upon a time.
Oh yeah.
There we go then, let's kick off. How's that working out?
Delicious.
It's pretty tasty. Fucking love Trois Rivière. If anybody from Trois Rivière is watching this podcast and would like to send us some free Trois Rivière, I love it.
We've got lots of it. Actually, I think.
But you don't have the classic, like the white.
No, that's the only one I don't have.
That's like the
But the rum collection is the biggest over there at the moment.
yeah, it's pretty special.
How was yesterday?
Yesterday was good, man. What did we do yesterday?
Flair Camp World Tour, London edition.
We did, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
The first class.
So you've been taking the reins on the Flair Camp World Tour.
Yes, sir.
For those that don't know, what is it? Just have a quick, and we'll come back to it later anyway, but...
Yeah, so the Flair Camp World Tour is a taster of Flair Camp. Flair Camp is a week-long event, and it only happens once a year. And there's a lot of people that can't make it to Europe to Spain and pay the money to do it because bartenders don't get paid the most.
Yeah.
So the idea of the tour is that we take our classes to the people and
Sure.
try and inspire them and as much people as possible.
Yeah.
By going to them and working with new teachers that we've never worked with before, legends in the bartending industry.
Leg ends.
Oh my God. We've got some really cool people. I'm really excited to be working with all of them.
Well, before we go into Flair Camp World Tour stuff,
Yes.
let's backtrack and go and I'll ask you a couple of questions about your career as a bartender.
Okay.
Let the people at home know who you are as well. So, how did you start as a bartender? I know the story, but enlighten me again.
Do you know what? I bet you don't know.
What?
How old was I when I first poured my first pint?
14.
Nope.
Never.
8 years old. What do you mean never? Never poured a pint.
I thought it was going to be one of those
Trick questions.
Yeah, when was I? How old was I?
I've avoided pouring pints for the last 10 years.
Excuse me, can I get 2 pints?
No, I don't pour pints.
No, don't do pints.
No. I was 8 years old.
Yeah?
My mum owned a pub.
All right.
And she used to let me jump behind the bar and pour pints, and I loved it because it was like old draft bitter, so you had to pull it down like that and squeeze it out. It wasn't just like the switch. So that was awesome. And then I had no idea. Like I've completely lost that from my memory. And then recently I realised, fuck, my first pint was when I was 8.
First pint was pulled at 8 years old, but when did you get into bartending? What was your first bartending job?
I was 18 years old, and it was in Portugal. I had a job giving out flyers, 2-for-1 cocktails, and then I got fired because I was really bad. It's the only job I've ever been fired from. And I was like, had to get a flight home because I had no money. But there's this one little bar called Chill Out Bar. Shout out to Lionel. Which camera? This one. Chill Out Bar, €1 a pint in Alvor. Love you. And I was about to fly home the next day because I had no job, just lost my job. And I said, I've got to fly home tomorrow night. Is there any chance I can get a job? And he said, well, I'll give you a trial tomorrow night, but I don't know if you'll get the job. I was like, well, my flight's tomorrow night, and we'll make a decision. so I didn't get the flight, and I stayed for a trial, which I got the job, thankfully. And he jokes. I saw him recently. He still jokes with me. He said before he met me, I didn't know how to open a can of Fanta. Like he's saying that all my success is due to him. But he's awesome. He's a very funny guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you worked there for how long?
Did a season in Alvor in Portugal for a year. Came back for the winter. Was in Manchester. Went back again. And overall, I did 3 seasons back to back in Portugal.
So I thought your first one was Sports Cafe.
No, it was actually before that. I was in Chill Out Bar. The second season I went back was in Sports Cafe.
And Sports Cafe was where you sort of honed your bread and butter, no?
Yeah.
Honed in your skills.
Big time. My first year when I was working in the Chill Out Bar, just pulling pints and stuff, every night we used to go to Sports Cafe, and the guys there did flair, and they were sick. They had like Francesco, now I know the style, it was Francesco Leone. But at the time, I just thought that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Nice.
And as an 18-year-old guy with no idea of what he wants to do in his life, and you see these guys behind the bar, but they were just amazing. And chicks were throwing themselves at him, and I was 18. I was like, that's what I want to do. So the next year, I started practicing, and then I completely fell in love with this girl. Like, completely fell in love. And it's a big old story, but she broke my heart, and I was hurting so bad just when I started flair that it was the only thing I could do that would just make me stop thinking about it. So that first year, 2 years and more, I was just flaring just to get. It was my therapy to get past this heartbreak. So it was just the timing, really. Just started bartending, just started flaring, and then got my heart broken, and it was just a motivation to practice, and then I just put in the hours.
And what year was that, do you remember?
2011.
2000. And there was like one specific move which you learned, like one of your first moves from a guy called Joao or something.
Johnny, yeah.
Johnny.
Yeah. Sure.
I think I did it in one of my videos recently, and you've done a sort of a very big upgrade to that move, which is on the...
Tell Johnny, don't tell me. He won't.
Sorry, Johnny. Jumbles done an upgrade to your move, which is on the Instagram, Flair Camp Instagram page at the moment. But what's the move, please?
Yeah, the move. Well, it wasn't the first of all. You said it was my.
Sorry?
You said it was one of the first moves I ever learned. No way.
Oh, was it not?
No way. The first move I ever learned was this.
Fucking nice. Nailed it.
That was the first move. No, so Johnny used to do this. He used to go.
Boom.
And it was really nice and sexy and silky. Now I've got a little upgrade. It's pretty much the same thing. I just put a little cheeky bump in there, and then when you cut, you can bump again, or not. But it's all joint.
Fantastic. It's interesting because whenever you go to a different country or a different place, you see the influences of other people.
Big time.
And in Portugal, I mean, the biggest influence I saw for a while was Andre Guerrero.
Yeah, man, big time.
And his style, some sick 4 bottles, like juggling on the bar top at Wild & Co and everything.
Yeah.
And then, around Europe, you'd see influences from different... But Francesco Leone was a big influence back in the days to people with his style and everything else.
Awesome style.
And the Italians seem to have good style in general. Like this day and age, Giorgio Chiarello is busting out the style.
It's hard to find an Italian flair bartender with that style.
Oh, I could probably name a
It's just
few.
the confidence, man.
True.
No, I mean, there's different styles. But they've all got a style. Whereas it's like a lack of confidence when you don't have a style.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're confidently going one direction, that's a style in its own.
So when I kind of first remember you was when we used to come practicing down at the school, and you seemed like this little kid, this younger guy.
Right, granddad.
Who perhaps wasn't so into flair, but was just doing it because it feels like even now there's a lot of people who do it just because perhaps they think it's cool or it's the right thing to do or whatever. But when was the sort of bug got? What was you doing at that point?
Well, my second season in Portugal, I saw my first flair competition, and that was on a beach. Miguel Duarte won it. It was epic. He did a fine Scottish stall on the head, left hand stall, and then he did it over the shoulder hand stall, and his face, he went. I was that guy in the crowd that was going, whoa! I was losing my shit, and then he did it and celebrated so well, and then he did it again and went like this. Boom, bah, I was going mental. I was loving it.
That is the key example of selling and presenting your moves well.
Big time. Like that's the first flair comp I ever seen. Knew nothing about flair, but he made me have the best time ever, and just because of his celebration. Because so many guys, when they land a move, they don't celebrate or they don't acknowledge it. Yeah. And I've been guilty of it in the past as well. But it's just the way we practice. Mm-hmm. Because we're always pushing and motivating ourselves to go harder and harder. When you celebrate, you don't want to give yourself any. You just want to keep going. You don't want to. I don't know. It's weird. You know what I mean?
It is the biggest mistake of people. But I watch some of my own routines, I watch other people's routines and think, okay, there should have been a moment where I should have stopped there. Or they should have stopped, let the people appreciate, smiled, looked up, just taken a moment to appreciate it. There is some people out there where that doesn't happen at all, but they still put it in there. Let's say Alexander Stifanov, who does like 50,000 moves in his routine. Yeah. He still has those facial expressions and those stops of celebration throughout his routine to allow people to kind of cheer. And before you know it, he's already onto another big move and you're cheering on that one as well.
Yeah. His linking moves are big moves. So it's all big moves.
So then, so you saw your first competition in Portugal.
Yeah, and that inspired me to practice.
And that was 2011
or 10 or 11.
Wow, yeah.
And then I came to, summer in Portugal, winter in London.
Yep.
Got a job in TGI Fridays.
Legendary.
Everybody, it's legendary. I just had a bad experience. It was not for me, man. Like, they say all the things about the training and everything, but because I'd already learned an American style as well in Portugal. lot of it was, some of it was contradicting, some of it wasn't. But anyway, I did all the certification and I did the bartender thing. But after 3 months, it wasn't for me. So during working in TGI Fridays, everybody in Portugal told me, I've got to go to one place. You've got to go to Lab. You've got to go to Lab, check out Lab. You'll never get a job in Lab, but go there and just go there and ask them where you can get a job because they know everybody in the industry. So my whole time while I was working in Fridays, I was going to Lab twice a week.
Yeah.
Not to get wasted. I was going Tuesday afternoons before my shift, or I was going then or then, just to talk to the bartenders, just to learn. Because when you walked into Lab, there was so much mystery.
Yeah. That
incredible back bar and so much stuff that I didn't know, and I just thought, man, I want to work here so bad. So I would just try and work there for a long time. I just tried to work there.
And Lab was this. I mean, I loved Lab. For those that don't know, the Lab bar was sort of the bartender's bar, I suppose.
Big time.
Middle of Soho. Was there for 20 years.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Great drinks. Was the leader of cocktails for a while, and I say that in a way where people would go there to really have great drinks served by good bartenders, great time, great music. They hit everything on the head, hit the nail on the proverbial head with great drinks, great music, great temperature, great atmosphere.
Yeah.
You'd also see a little bit of flair every now and again from some of the bartenders, and that iconic Porn Star Martini came from there as well.
Yeah.
So then yes, you were going to Lab, pestering the bartenders.
Yeah. And I made a CV. I don't know if I've ever told you this. I made a video CV. And it was just me talking to the camera saying, hey, I really want to work in Lab because of this. And the whole video was just for Lab. And I was like cutting in shots of like me doing this and that and playing in Portugal or whatever. And it's so cringy. When I watch it back, it's so cringy.
Oh, can we show the people?
Nobody will ever see it.
Please, man.
Nope.
You can't. You said to me that when we make this video, we should have videos of reference to know what we're talking about.
Well, let's not talk
so
about
that
this.
everybody wants to see this video.
Let's not talk about
Put
it.
a comment below if you want to see that video. Okay.
So I made this video and I got the job.
Yeah.
So he said, you're going to start on Monday. Bring all blacks. Wicked. TGI Fridays. See you later. Quit the job. Turn up on my first shift. Manager Carl says, come on, mate. It's just I've got to have a sit down. I'm afraid there's no longer a job for you. I was like, what? He was like, yeah. So basically, one of our barbacks got drunk and left a bin in the street. A car hit the bin and it was a £600 fine. £600 to fix the windshield and the damages. So he gave the barback an ultimatum. You've got to pay the money or I've got to fire you. So he thought the barback would quit. But the barback paid the money.
No.
Just so he could keep working in Lab. It's actually a really good friend now, Miguel. But at the time I was like, oh, right.
They thought you got
fucked. I'm pretty fucked then. And then that was a really actually tough part of my life. So I spent 3 months without a job. And I was crashing on people's sofas and I was busking in South Bank near the skate park.
Oh yeah?
Just
what, flaring?
Flare bottle and tin.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It was horrible.
Make any money?
Just to eat.
Yeah?
It was really shit, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It got to a point, I think it was like April, when I just called my dad. I was like, listen, Dad, can you just give me a one-way ticket to Portugal? And I'm going to do a summer out there because I know I've got a job there.
Yeah.
My sister was living there in the time.
Yeah.
And London was just too much to handle. But I think I was training in the school a bit. You would have seen me around that time. But then when I stopped is when I couldn't afford the membership anymore. But
Okay. I do kind of remember that. I think possibly that was the time when I saw you. You were keeping yourself. Maybe that's why you were feeling down, and that's maybe I got that impression that you were.
Yeah, that was tough.
Maybe not so into it. But then you went back to
I did
Portugal.
a season, and then after the season got back, Tony Malin, legend, said, "Do you want a job in Ronnie Scott's oldest jazz club in Soho? Amazing place." So I ended up working there, and it's just around the corner from Lab. After 2 months of working in Ronnie Scott's, the manager of Lab came to Ronnie Scott's and said to the manager, "I'm going to ask Jumbles to work for me. Is that all right?" I just was so thrilled. Went to work in Lab and never learned so much like in my life. The best team I've ever worked with. And what I love about Lab is that their system, for since they opened, because they've only got 4 stations, they've only got 4 bartenders on the team. 2 senior bartenders and 2 juniors. And it's just a constant like Jedi Padawan situation where when the senior leaves, the junior becomes the senior.
Right.
And then there's a new junior.
Yeah.
And then it's just this constant passing of knowledge and skill sets.
Nice.
And the importance of style. And what I loved about lab is every single bartender had a different style.
Yeah.
And every single bartender flared. Nobody threw anything in the air, but they all worked with incredible flair.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Luis, Steve, Josh, myself, and then Kyle, the GM. I've never seen more of a fucking aggressive pour in my life. He used to cut like this.
I went around too easy.
He used to go like honestly, I swear to God, fucking aggressive with his cuts. But I would be transfixed. So when I would go there to watch the bartenders work, I just couldn't take my eyes off him.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned in lab.
Wow.
One of the best things I ever learned was when you're working with style and everything, you know where everything is, and there's never a moment of hesitation or looking for something. Everything is just in the flow state.
Yeah.
People watching forget that they're waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you go, what can I get for you, mate? And they go, can I get a... I love it. And that's one of the best things I ever learned working there.
Stretch, save the water. Just too late now.
I popped in the shaker.
In the what? In the shaker, cool. Stretch used to say that in interviews with people. He goes, well, they're not waiting, they're watching.
It's true though.
It's true.
If you do your job right, you'll make them forget that they're waiting.
Exactly, and that's the key, isn't it? I mean, you said about no hesitation and it just flowing in the flow state. What's this in the flow state?
So there's a guy called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi who did a study in the 60s about how people are at their happiest, okay? And the more he researched this with people from all walks of life, the more the same word kept appearing in all of his studies, flow. And people were describing, when I'm doing this activity, everything just flows.
Right.
Or when I'm with this, everything just flows. And the flow became the word that he coined, the flow state. And then recently a guy called Stephen Kotler and quite a few other people have been working on the science behind the chemicals in the brain and trying to understand how the flow state works. But basically, I'm not a scientist, but from what I've studied, you're part of the brain that deals with your self-awareness, your sense of time perception. All of that shuts down. I think it's the frontal cortex or the frontal lobar cortex. That shuts down.
Right.
And the other part of the brain is activated. So your sense of time dilates.
Right.
So for example, if you've ever been flaring on stage, which obviously you have, time doesn't work the same.
No.
Sometimes it passes like this, and sometimes one moment lasts for what feels like 10 minutes.
Like a stall.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Time dilates, creativity increases, your ability to learn increases, the amount of tests they've done. I'm not selling this right now.
No,
That's why we're drinking coffee.
But you're selling it good. I think the whole point of me asking is that this flow state, I think there's a few people out there who can, I mean, in talking in the flair bartending world, first of all, at the very lowest form, I think there's a few people out there in the flair bartending world, at the very minimum, who can relate to that, especially on stage. Like Flair Mania competition last week, whenever it was.
Right.
Alexander Stifanov was in the flow state from the beginning until the end of his routine. He was just on fire.
Yeah.
And you get to that point where, like you said, no hesitation. Everything is just happening and you're just not thinking about time. You're not thinking about anything else. You're just 100% focused on that moment. And you're just, like you said, you're just flowing. And I think it's a good thing for people to know about, to know that if you can get to that point, that's where you're going to start learning more. You're going to start being more creative. How can people get into the flow state? What's the correlation?
Most of the time, adrenaline needs to be involved, and then it's fight or flight. Which one do you choose?
Right.
You need to attack the flow state with open arms, but not thinking about it.
Right.
It just needs to happen. It just needs to flow.
Yeah.
Frustration is a trigger. So as you're getting more and more frustrated, keep going, but don't be thinking the flow state's coming. It's just around the corner.
Yeah.
Just clear your mind and just keep going. You need to have a task, or you need to be doing something that's more difficult than you are capable of doing.
Sure.
And then the higher risk it is to your life, the easier it is to get into the flow state.
Don't be going flaring on the side of a cliff or anything like that, right?
No, but the more danger is involved, the more pain that's involved.
Sure.
the easier it is to trigger, and the longer it will last. And the one thing I'm going to say, sorry, before.
Go for it.
It's very easy to get knocked out of the flow state. It's very easy to get into the flow state.
Yeah.
What's difficult is to maintain the flow state.
Yeah.
What you described about Stiffer the other day, being in the flow state for that long, he wasn't conscious. That's why people call it, you're not conscious. They call it being in the zone. They call it being in the pocket.
Yeah.
There's many different terms over the years for it.
Yeah.
But you just can't be thinking. You can't be celebrating. Like a lot of us get knocked out because we trash talk.
Yeah.
Or we want to film something, or we want to do this or this. You just got to keep the clear mind, not celebrate, not get too high, not get too low. Just keep pushing, and you'll remain in the flow state.
Sure.
It's just very difficult to do that.
I see that with students sometimes. They go in for a second or two and then they're out again.
Big time.
When they either get what you're trying to teach, or they land in a move and then they land it again, and then, like you said, they kind of celebrate, and then they're back to sort of reality again.
As well, you'll see it in students especially. When we're not looking, or when they think we're not looking, they can do it perfectly.
Yeah.
As soon as we approach them and they want some feedback, they can't do it, because they then become very self-aware, and the pressure's too much to bear. Now I'm just a rhymer, born rhymer.
As a poet, and you didn't know it.
So to be in the flow state, you need to have this selflessness. You need to have this effortlessness and timelessness.
Yeah.
Okay, those three things, you're in the flow state. So as soon as you're made self-aware, then you're going to get knocked out of the flow state.
Fucking hell.
You just can't be self-conscious. You can't give a fuck. You've just got to focus only on the task and keep everything else clear, and everything else will increase. And the reason why the people are the most happiest in this state is because it releases endorphins, and it releases that thing that I forgot the scientific name for, bruv. Which is really good for the brain, isn't it, bruv? I've forgotten.
Dopamine.
So
everyone loves a bit of dopamine.
Dopamine, endorphins, but then
Dolphins?
Endorphins.
Yeah, I know.
But then as well, you get knocked, like the come down as well afterwards. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Like after a flare comp, you can attest. Oof. You're just so drained.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe, but you don't want to party. You don't. Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you're just like, it's like.
You've been on such high alert for such a long time before you go up on stage. Then you go up on stage and you're adrenaline and you're on the high alert and all these endorphins and dopamine and blah, blah, blah. And then you come off, you're like.
Yeah, it's the recovery stage, and you need it.
So that time when you was practicing at the school a little bit, and you were like this guy who was just kind of there and doing your thing, and I remember seeing you on stage a couple of times, and you were trying to do like multiple object stuff, and you were struggling with it, and there was frustrations, which we see a lot from everybody these days, and I see a lot, even yesterday, Flair Camp World Tour in London, there's clearly a few people who wanted to learn, some more multiple object stuff. And one thing I try and say to my students is not go down the multiple object road, but it's about honing in on the skills and selling what you can do already really well. So not trying to do it too soon, basically, and trying just to get all the multiple object stuff. And I saw this in you, and you saw it in yourself, I think. Yeah. And there was a change in your flair. I'm not trying to say let's go down the bottle tin road, but when that change was happening and why did it happen? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, definitely. I was very self-analytical. That was my tool to progression, was analyzing myself, watching the videos back from training, from competitions, everything from body language, posture to how I would smile. The smallest details you wouldn't even think of, I was thinking about.
Right.
And one of the things I realized was that when I was doing bottle tin, I was able to express myself.
Yeah.
And I was able to flare. Whereas when you do multiple objects, you plant your feet in the ground and you're just fucking focused on catching everything.
True.
And performing this trick. It's tough to tell students today, but man, we had some guys yesterday in our class, they could juggle 3 and 4 bottles, but they couldn't pour. And it just makes me so sad, because we're bartenders. So if you can't pour, then what can you do?
Exactly. If you can't pour, you're a juggler.
Yeah.
I mean, flair is, in the most extreme form on stage, is a form of juggling. Whether people...
Flair bartending has turned into it, but that's not what flair is.
Sorry, no. Okay, we'll get onto flair and Flair Bartending in a bit. But go on, talk about your journey a bit more for me, please.
Thank you, please.
Just while I'm making these Virgin Marys, because it is 10:30 in the morning.
Virgin Mary. Okay, cool. My journey. Yeah, man. I was doing multiple projects like everyone else, ticking all the boxes and going through the motions, and putting in crazy hours. But I just wasn't happy. Wasn't enjoying it, and I was training with a guy called Mikey Holes.
Yeah.
And he was a good friend, and Mikey wouldn't mind me saying this, but he was a fucking angry man. Like, honestly, in the practice room with him, he would just be throwing stuff against the wall, smashing. Can't! Like, it was like training with the Hulk. I swear to God, he was mental. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Mikey, but we had some good laughs as well. But yeah, and I realised that it happens to me as well, and it's just the anger and this bad environment. Whereas with bottle and tin, first of all, as a Flair bartender who trains in a practice room, most of your time is spent doing this.
Yeah, getting a bad back, basically.
Picking stuff up, and then resetting, and then going again. And it's just these breaks in the flow state, and it just like, it makes everything stutter. Bottle and tin, you're dropping less, and even when you do drop, you can keep going, go down to pick it up and continue.
Yeah, you can keep that flow moving.
Just the music, man. You can just enjoy the music more. You can dance with the music more.
So when did you stop thinking, okay, I'm going to do multiple object stuff? Because I remember that kind of period slightly. Yeah. But when was it when you were like, oh, okay, I'm just not going to bother? Because there was like, when did you think?
I think it was about 2013 that I had I was doing the same shit as everybody else, but I had 2 sections in my routine that was bottled in. And then in a couple of comps later, I had 3 sections, and then less. And then when we did our bottle tin is king thingy,
yep,
that was the last time I did a comp with just multiple objects, because I just did one move with 3 tin 1 bottle, and then the rest was bottle tin.
Yep.
And then from then on out, I've just only ever done bottle and tin.
Yep. And you know what I've seen? There's been other people who have been influenced by that time. I mean, and as I said a minute ago, it's like I am no way claiming that I was any instigator of any kind of bottle tin is king. And because before me and you, there was Nicholas and Ollie, Sebastian Ogwich. Nicholas was a huge ambassador for this. Was Ollie Pluck on video at Roadhouse saying bottle tin is king, baby, you know? And
the phrase, I probably, through osmosis, got it from Ollie Pluck in that video.
True.
Because he goes, bottle tin is king, baby. So the phrase actually probably came from Ollie Pluck. But the mentality of bottle tin, I'm sure, from me personally, came from Nicholas. Because he was my idol when I started Flair.
Yeah.
He was the first guy I was like, wow, that's the way I want to go.
And just quickly about that bottle tin is king time. I remember when, because it's going to be my last comp, and you come and whisper in my ear, go, I've got a good idea for you. What about if you do the 8-minute routine with just bottle tin? And I thought, what a fucking great idea. Then I don't have to practice all that multiple object shit.
Yeah, you know? Exactly, yeah.
And what it did, the only reason I bring it up, and what it did for me, exactly like you said, it made me be able to focus on the people a lot more.
Yeah.
And I look at all my routines of multiple object stuff, and I just don't like them. They just look too tough.
Yeah.
And then look at my bottle tin routine, and whenever anyone's doing bottle tin, really, there's so much more emphasis on the entertainment and the show and the crowd aspect. I'm not saying everyone should stay away from multiple objects in no way, shape or form. I think some people can do it really, really well. Your Alexander Stifanov, your Dennis Trifonovs, Rodrigo Delpesh. And I love to see a big move. Love it. What's his name? Sergey Bulaktin. It's 2-bottle, 4-tin, big move. I love it. I love big moves, and that will organically happen. But I am a bigger instigator of only do what makes you happy on stage, rather than trying to do what you think is the right thing to do. And I think you were very good at doing that earlier on, and I think that's what you realised.
Do you know what it was as well? Do you know what it was as well? Marcus Klammer once said to me, because we were watching like Marek on stage or something, UK versus the rest of the world, and Klammer said to me, we're never going to beat them. He was like, we're never going to beat them in difficulty or originality or anything. We've only got showmanship. I remember he said that to me and I was thinking, we could beat him. Surely there must be a way around it. And what helped as well was like not giving a fuck. Like big time, not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
Because everybody does it in one way.
Yeah.
So not giving a fuck really helped me to go, you know what? It doesn't really matter what the result is. And I really, for a while, I didn't give a fuck about winning. And I just want to do my thing. But then I actually started winning more because I was doing my own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Which then revitalized my competitive nature and made me push harder in that direction of bottle tin. Because initially it was like, fuck, I don't want to win anymore. I'm just here to have fun.
Exactly that, man. And that is the epitome of what I tell to people in my training yesterday was, look, guys, if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to enjoy it, obviously, but the people watching you are not going to enjoy it. Flair on stage and behind the bar is supposed to be in some way entertaining and be fun to do. If you're not enjoying it, then what's the point? Do you know what I mean? And I think that speaks massively for what you were doing, because as soon as you stopped trying to do what was expected of you, as you said, you stepped up and you went from this guy who I, no offense, didn't really notice in the practice room, just another guy practicing, to, hang on a second, he's really fucking making a difference here and doing some really cool shit. And we just saw progression after progression. And like you said, if you don't give a shit.
Yeah, that was it.
And that's what we need to see more of. Eric Yu, for example. This guy who's busting up multiple object stuff like no one's business. But he doesn't care. He's going up there and he doesn't care about winning. I mean, you can see, obviously everyone wants to win, but he's not like, okay, I'm there to win. I'm practicing to win. And I had this conversation with Marek the other day. And I'm like, you practice to win a competition. He's not there practicing to win. He's there to go out there and this is what I can do. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. I'm going to do my flair, no matter how many drops I've had before. And it's so emotional when I watch him because you can see that come through on his routine. Yeah. And the last 2 times I've watched him on stage, he finishes and everyone is like, whoa, clapping, no matter how many drops he's had, and he's smiling, everyone's smiling. For sure, people are a little bit emotional. It's fucking great, man. It's great.
He's got a chip on his shoulder and he's got something to prove. So, same with Marek, they're 2 very different points in their career as well, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I think we all start young and hungry.
Yeah.
And that hunger gives us that exactly what we've just been talking about.
But he doesn't, there is still youngsters out there who are young and hungry, but they're young and hungry to win. He doesn't seem so hungry to win. He seems more hungry just to show his stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't agree?
Yeah, but to win what? Like a flair comp, a flair bartending comp. I mean...
I definitely underpoured those a little bit.
That's all right.
But I think he's just hungry to show his skills and what he can do. Ooh.
Yeah. It doesn't turn me on anymore though, the flair comps, you know, it's...
Hang on, where did you put the tomatoes?
Tomatoes in the jar, I think. Oh, behind there.
Ah. So go on, flair comps don't turn you on anymore?
Not at all, not in the slightest.
No? Why is that?
The first time I realised that I'm bored at a flair comp was with you in March, when I gave you the idea for Bartending is King.
Yeah.
When we were watching everybody, we were bored.
Yeah.
Imagine that, like 2 guys who we care about it are bored. So imagine the fucking public.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like, well, what are we doing? What is it? Where's it going? And the fact that this format was invented in 1991, the year I was born. And 30 years later, we're still doing the same fucking format. It's just that flair has so much more to offer than the way it is and the way it's going. And I just wish for other people to do something new. Like, even if the competition format stays the same, enter the competition, but do whatever the fuck you want to do. Like what we did with Bartending is King. Be more extreme. Do something in a completely different way. I just wish people would realise that they control our culture.
Yeah.
And the guys at the top have a responsibility because the whole culture is following them. So Stefanov, Trifonov, Chiarello, Marek, Luca, everybody is looking to them. Everybody's looking to them and seeing what they're doing. So they have a responsibility to stay true to their art, bartending.
Exactly.
Making fucking drinks.
Just like this fucking bad boy right here.
Just like this bad boy with
I
this
like
90s
my
garnish.
You love it, don't you? And my
Where are we?
tomato juice float on top.
This
You know it.
Yeah, the thing with Bottle Tin is King is that the reason why we did it was to try and pull the culture, try and bring the culture back to bartending, because it was
Sorry, that's fucking delicious.
There was a very evident point when our own industry fucking hated us, and pretty much they still do today. Nothing's changed.
Flair bartenders.
Bartenders.
Bartenders hating flair bartenders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been happening for over a decade now, but it became really apparent to me at a point. Bottle Tin is King was a way of trying to bring flair bartending competition culture back to bartending culture.
Yeah.
Because they're completely separated.
Sure.
Bottle Tin is King is my way of trying to say, guys, let's focus on making good drinks, less objects. It's not about that. It's about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But everybody just took it to meaning, I'm going to do 45 seconds of Bottle Tin in my routine instead of 30.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was just so kind of disappointed that it didn't have people didn't get it like we intended. But at the same time, at least they do more Bottle Tin. Which, if you can remember when you first started going to a competition, because I can remember mine, my favourite bit of anybody's routine was when he started doing Bottle Tin.
It still is.
It still is. Because it's just like fucking running instead of walking.
It's your bread and butter. We've said it for many years, and I say we because collectively as a community, I grew up flaring with Neil Garner, Neil Lowry, Nicholas St John, Francesco Leone, Sebastian Ogwich, way before your time.
Oh, man. You just measure like the best. Yeah, just grew up with him.
And it was all about, we didn't have Facebook or YouTube or ways to share moves and stuff like that. So, we were predominantly doing bottle tin or two objects. Bottle tin, two bottle and tin maybe. Some people were doing 3-bottle juggling. But bottle tin was, check out this new move in the practice room, check out this new move. It was all about being original and creative as much as you possibly can. I think we had it easier because there was no moves created back then. So we were sort of finding all these new ideas. But it's not impossible to do that now either.
Yeah, 100 years ago they said everything that's been invented will be invented.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't agree it's easier. It's still, if it's not been invented, it's still just as hard to create something than now. I understand looking back you can say that, but I would say I don't think it was easier.
Perhaps, but it was still this, this bread and butter. I remember when Nicholas and John started doing 3 bottles for the first time. The rumors were Nicholas is doing 3 bottles. His 3 bottles looks like bottle tin, because we wanted it to flow like it was nothing. So you're manipulating 3 bottles like it was bottle tin.
Yeah.
And that's the way all the multiple object stuff should kind of look like in our eyes. But then we got, we went down a different path of difficulty.
Yeah.
We've gone completely off on a tangent as to where we were because...
No, you keep talking. We're talking about a relevant issue.
But yeah, we went off...
problem.
It went off onto difficulty, and then I think, again, my generation was an instigator for that as well, because we started to go, right, let's push the boundaries. 3-bottle tin, 2-bottle, 2 tin, 3 bottles, 4 bottles, 5 bottles. Rodrigo Del Pesh was doing 6 bottles since fucking 1922. But it was people just trying to be as difficult as they can. And then Tomek came out with this 3 tin, 2 bottle sequence at the end of his routine, which just destroyed it. And that was leading the way for a good year when he won basically every international competition, major Grand Slam competition in a year, plus all the other comps that he won. And people look at that and go, wow, that's what I need to do. But the difference is that Tomek looked at the routine, and he looked at his whole routine and built it up to that point where the rest of the routine was still very difficult and well thought out, but that was the part you were waiting for with Tomek. His bottle tin was not the strong part. His strong part was 3 tin, 2 bottle, and he made that his own.
Yeah.
Whereas, other people made bottle tin their own, some people made 3 bottles their own, like Rodrigo. And what people are missing today is that it's not about doing what he's done to be there, it's about doing your own thing to make you happy. So whereas bottle tin works for us, Dennis, it's multiple objects work for him, and he does that very well. Same with, I think, a few other people. And that's what I want to try and push out to people, is that do what makes you happy on stage, because then other people will be happy about that as well. But always try and get it around making a drink as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would prioritize it differently. I would focus purely entirely. If there's any young kids watching this, you need to watch Sicky and take inspiration from him, because he's the only guy in the scene today who's doing it the right way. He's making drinks.
Yeah.
His knees are in the rail for half his routine. Every motherfucker else is 3, 2, 1, go. Ice in the glass, napkins down, take 2 steps back, and spend 4.5 minutes throwing shit around.
Yeah, and then they come
And
back.
then the last 10 seconds, rush back to the bar, scramble some god-awful fucking water in bottles with juices, serve it with a mess, and then if they're lucky, they'll garnish it in time, but most of the time, it's an unfinished drink, or it's a broken glass on the bar top. And it's just really, it's not bartending, it's juggling with bartending objects, and that's what it's evolved into.
Yeah.
Now, if this was an investigation, the culprit, the person guilty, is competition. Competition rewards difficulty over everything else. Despite what the score sheet might tell you, it's difficulty that wins competitions. The creative and the original don't.
Yeah,
so it's been going in this difficulty path for so long, and now we're still going in that path, and it's just, it drives me mental. Something that I love so much is just going in the wrong direction, and it's too late to save. You know, it's like they're not going to change. It's going to keep going that way, and I've just got to sort of accept it and try and create something new, or try and take the best bits of what Flair used to be in the golden days, take them to create something new in the bartending industry and in our profession.
I think it can change, because you look at the Roadhouse finals last year, they put their balls out and did a pour and a speed and a Flair round. But the format of 4 and 6 minutes, or, you know, qualification final, it definitely needs a change.
Competition.
But
the stage, the fact that there's a stage and not a bar.
True, but competition will always happen. It will always happen.
Yeah, that's what I said. They're gonna keep going.
It will always happen. I think, and competition, I believe, is healthy. I do believe it's healthy. Competition helps push things forwards, helps drive things, helps people learn. The level of which we've got to on competitions, I think, is not healthy in terms of how it's just become down to the point of I want to win.
I think competition is a really good tool to use to grow aspects in a particular way. So, for example, if I had control of the Flair bartending industry 20 years ago, and you told me, Jumbles, make Flair bartending more difficult and crazy. Cool. So I'll make difficulty the main priority in comps, and then over time, everyone will be more difficult. And that's exactly happened.
Yeah.
So competition is definitely exactly what you said, but it's our responsibility to make a competition that funnels Flair in the bartending industry. So, for example, if you did a competition where it was an open bar and the Flair bartender who gets the most tips wins, after 10 years' time, the evolution of how we make tips, because it's a competition, would dramatically increase.
Yeah.
Or if it was a competition about how many people you can make laugh, or you've got a decibel meter measuring sound.
Yeah.
How loud can you make the crowd in front of your bar cheer for you?
Sure.
Then in 10 years' time, all of those things would increase in that direction. Flair bartending tricks are cool, and that's what attracted us all to them in the first place. But it's just one tiny element of it.
Excuse me.
And I've seen so many better bartenders who can't do any fucking tricks, but they work with such flair.
Sure.
And you'll never have heard of them, you'll never see them in a comp, but they're the best Flair bartenders I've ever seen. And I've seen so many guys on stage do fucking difficult tricks, but with zero flair. And just this robotic, emotionless.
Yeah.
And another problem is, when you're bartending, you have an incredible weapon, and that's your voice. And you use it a hell of a lot. If you make a fumble, you'll make a joke. If you make a drop, you'll make another joke. If you land a move, you'll make a joke. You just talk all the time to people. It's such a social job. And on stage, you lose one of your biggest weapons.
Sure.
So it would be fantastic to see a competition that incorporates that as well. I just think for 30 years, we've tried one way of competition. For 30 years.
Yeah, I know.
Let's try something new now, shall we?
I think it's coming. I do think it's coming because you look at Roadhouse brought different formats, slightly different, and the competition you just mentioned, Andy Collinson put together with the Sky Vodka years ago about people flaring behind the bar and earning tips. Nicholas brought out ideas for battle comps, and he's probably got a whole bunch of other ones that he's not telling us, Nicholas, so you're going to do them or not. So I definitely think that there's like this underlying agreement from a lot of the bigger names in the industry who've been around for a long time to go, yeah, it's becoming stale as it is. And I agree, I totally agree with you. Like this routine for 4 and 6 minutes or whatever is becoming stale, and there's a very small handful of people in the world who can do that well. And I love making a routine and making it fun for people, but the only person who it can truly be fun for is the person on stage, because it's a massive ego wank for them. And it's a disconnection from bartending, it's a disconnection from the people. Whereas, like you said, if you can make a competition where, just for example, you have to make 2 cocktails, and you can talk, or you can play a little bit of music, or you can do whatever you want. I would love to see that. And if you look at competitions these days, you have your 5 minutes on stage. People can still do that. There's nothing to say you have to play music.
And this is what I was coming to say earlier on. Just because the rules say one thing doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah, exactly.
The stage is not only for the competition, but that's your platform to reach people and inspire people.
Yeah.
So if you have a concept, and so many kids ask me for advice about the flair and about this and that, and the number one thing I say to them is you need a concept. You need a direction of what you think flair should be. And be the flair you want to see is the best advice that someone ever gave me, because that made me pursue Bottle Tin is King, because I wanted to see Bottle Tin.
Yeah.
Someone told me be the flair you want to see. So, okay, I'll just do Bottle Tin because that's what I like watching.
Yeah.
So I encourage other people to do the same thing.
Flippy said it. I chatted to Flippy a couple of years ago. And Flippy probably, one of the most watched bartenders on YouTube at the moment.
One of the best flair bartenders in the world.
One of the best.
If not the best.
And there was a moment where he was at home juggling 3 bottles, practicing for a competition, and getting frustrated and throwing them on the floor and getting frustrated. And I think he said it was his dad come up to him and go, what's wrong? He goes, I'm trying practicing these 3 bottles, but I can't do it, and it's frustrating. And he goes, well, don't do it then. And Flippy's gone, what are you talking about? He goes, don't do it, do something else. He's gone, yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah.
So he just stopped there and then doing 3 bottles.
Nice.
And focused on what he wanted to do, and did that, and did a much better job. And then you talk about using your voice. He even did that on stage once. I think it was King of the Ring, the first one or the second one.
Yeah.
And he had a head mic on.
Yeah.
And he rapped his whole routine.
Yeah.
Like, he wrote this whole rap tune, rapped his whole routine whilst flaring. And I'm like, that's 100% entertainment points right there. And that's just him. That's the epitome of somebody going out there, being what you want to see in flair and doing whatever you want to do to make you happy.
Exactly, but these are just pebbles in the ocean. Throughout the flair history, people like Nicholas, Flippy with that routine, the Bottle Tin is King routine, people have tried to make their mark on flair, but people continue to organise competitions in the same fucking way. So until the organisers of competitions change, then flair will never change, and it will continue to remain stale. You will continue to find it hard to get sponsorship.
Yeah.
Because brands, who the fuck would want to sponsor a flair comp when you're just making the brand look bad? You don't care about the liquid inside, you only care about the empty version of the it doesn't make sense in every way, but because we're so in it and under the water, it's just a lack of perspective.
I can see years ago how it worked for brands, because you didn't have so much online activity.
Yeah.
And you had this videos that you could create and put through TV, and it's very visual.
Yeah.
Now you've got social media. Okay, you can give 10 grand to a competition, or am I going to put 10 grand into promoting my brand on social media?
Right.
I'm going to put 10 grand into promoting my brand on social media.
Right.
Immediately. I'd be like, fuck no, I'm going to do it. What's the competition going to bring me? And that's really bad for me to say, because I'd love for them to sponsor a flair comp. But I totally get it. Like, we work with brands for our bar school, and they want to see people pouring liquor. They want to see people making drinks from their brand. They don't want to see people getting frustrated, getting angry on stage, dropping their bottle, it flying all over the place, liquid flying out of it. Doesn't work for them. They would love to see a cool trick done with their bottle that looks good, but the collective overall of a competition doesn't give that brand what they need. You know, it's not the best way of showcasing a brand.
Yeah. Back in the days, it was. I mean, it's always been like this with sort of Flair and the mixology world.
Yeah.
And Flair was, you know, at its peak on ESPN in America. It was, you know, $100,000 prize money, fucking huge. And it was going and going and going. And then the recession, and the sponsors backed out, and then technology, and then, you know, so many factors played a role in that.
So many factors took over, and I won't say ruined Flair competitions, but took away the money to fund it. And like you say, going back, you know, if people continue to organise the same, it's the definition of psychopath. You keep organising the same thing, you keep getting the same results. And we keep getting the same results. And competitors need to realise the difference between one competition and another. Organisers need to have the balls to organise something else. And I don't want to say organisers and point the blame elsewhere, because I've organised. And I think for us who are saying this, we need to show that as well. And I think there needs to be the older generation who were competing step up and go, I'm going to organise a different type of competition. And I've got loads of ideas I want to organise for competitions. It's trying to just make it happen. And I think that everybody should try and do that. Do this, you know, if you believe that there should be a different way of showcasing it, I think you should do something as well.
Well, we spoke about the Flair Camp competition.
Sorry?
We spoke about the Flair Camp competition for this year, Flair Camp. And I told you, like, I'm really strongly against doing a fucking competition like they are done now. And I really feel strongly that we need to do something else. And then recently I heard that you and Pedro are organising that. And I just pray for the life of me that you're not organising that. In Barfest, it would be awful. We're inspiring the next generation of 100 bartenders plus in person, and then however many thousands more online. We need to do something new and original and morally good for bartending.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility, I feel like. And yeah, it's easy to organise a Flair Camp because we've been doing it for years. And Petty G's on logistics, so it would be less hassle. It'd be easier. If it's a case of saying, I'll organise the comp, then I'll organise the comp.
Yeah, I think, well, let's see how it goes. I don't want to organise the same type of competition. Tomek doesn't want to organise the same type of competition. We've got to make it...
I had an idea. Can I tell you now on camera?
Yeah.
The Sky Comp, right? The Sky Comp that was organised by Andy Collinson. In Barfest. Island bar in the middle. Okay? 4 stations. 4 bartenders. 1 hour shift. Each bartender can only make 1 drink. Whichever brand wants to sponsor this, each station will be using that product and they'll make their own drink. Every guest arrive and they get given 5 fake dollars. Okay? And you can buy, it's a $1 fake dollar a drink. So you can buy a drink from each person, but you've got $1 left to buy an extra drink from another person. So one guy will get 2 and everyone else will get 1 pretty much, so you can try everything. And they can tip you, okay? The idea is that it's you, Pedro, Marek and Tomek. Because Barfest is going to be all our students. So throughout the day and the mingling and the excitement in the room and everything like this, people are going to gather around. And then at some point, we're going to ring the bell and say, the bar is open. And you 4 guys are going to be on the stations for just an hour, just busting out some drinks. I know it's going to be work, but you're going to have a laugh.
I don't mind.
And it's going to be competitive. And it's going to be fun and interactive. And and drinks are involved. And you're going to really focus on the quality because you're serving, because you want the money to win the comp.
Yeah.
And
hang on, let me just...
We all know how competitive you and Marek are going to be. It would just be the best competition for Flair Camp.
I agree.
Because everything we teach and the direction that we're going in, it's counterintuitive to do a regular comp. It's counterintuitive to teach 3-bottle exhibition flair. That's why we teach wet classes now more than dry classes. That's why we teach bartending more now than we do multiple objects. Because we've realised that it's the wrong direction to go in, and it's bartending that is ultimately our home, our profession, and where we need to stay. Yeah. So this competition, if we did something like that, would be fantastic, and it's completely brand friendly and easy to sponsor. If anybody wants to see that competition, comment something or like or do something online where you let us know. I don't know what they do. Where's this going? Is this going on YouTube? Or
YouTube.
Facebook? YouTube.
Let's go back to. Sorry, it's good, no?
Yeah. Sorry,
Really
I've been
good.
talking for ages.
It's just quickly Virgin Mary, not fully virgin. It's got Pedro Jimenez in there as a nice little tomato juice, salt, pepper, lemon, lime juice, and tomato juice. Worcestershire sauce and Tabasco. Flair bartending, flair. We touched on it a little bit earlier about what is flair. What is flair? Not flair bartending. What is flair?
So the dictionary says flair is to do something, an innate ability to do something well. And then the secondary definition is stylishness and originality.
Yeah.
That's the dictionary definition. You can interpret it in many ways. From my personal own opinion, and I've been trying to answer this question for fucking 6 years, right? And I still don't feel like I'm fully there, but I can explain it better in metaphor than I can explain it normally. So somebody who can flair is somebody who is a master of their craft, whatever their craft is. If they work in a bank, if they work in retail, if they work wherever they work, just a job where they've put their 10,000 hours in, a job that has had plenty of physical repetition.
Yeah.
So for example, as a bartender,
What's the 10,000 hours?
it takes 10,000 hours to master your craft.
Cool.
As a bartender, making drinks, all night we're pouring bottles, all fucking night, thousands of times a night. Some people are totally okay with doing this every single time.
Yeah.
But some people, maybe there's a beautiful girl, maybe there's a moment where your friends come in, maybe there's a moment where the music is turning you on, or something just gives you an extra spark inside, and you, instead of doing this, you go like this.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe that the reason why bartending has a connection to flair more than any other profession is because of alcohol.
Yeah.
Because bartenders drink, and it relaxes your self-awareness, and it allows you to access the flow state, which increases creativity.
Yeah.
So flair is the rebellion against monotony. Essentially, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Some people, and not everybody can flair. Like, some people think that flair can be taught, but it's really an internal
Expression.
discovery. It's confidence. It's understanding that you are a master, and doing the same for so long is boring as fuck. It's boring as fuck, and
Agreed.
it's our inner child that's rebelling against being bored, doing what they love. So by doing what they love, by adding some little sauce on top, that's flair.
Yeah.
Putting it into flair bartending, it could be the way we greet somebody. Hey, how you doing? What can I get for you? You know, it could be the way we finish a pour. You know, it could be many things, but for fuck's sake, what it is not is this.
For fuck's sake.
Fucking split snatch bollocks. That's not what it is. And it could be so many things, and it's just misdiagnosed. It's got the wrong terminology.
So now you're kind of going on to flair bartending, right?
Yeah, just because people watching are bartenders, I assume, and I'm just trying to bring it around. But flair in general is any master of his craft who is expressing their pride of their profession.
Agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And that can be in accounting even. You've seen those people on a fucking calculator. That's flair for me.
Big time.
It's flair. You're doing something with an adaptability.
You see the guys, you must have seen the Turkish ice cream man. Fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
This guy putting ice cream on the cones, and then he's playing with it. The guy keeps trying to grab the ice cream, and he's just playing with it. He's just having a fucking laugh. This guy could just do that. Thank you. Thank you. And I bet 90% of ice cream guys, they do that.
Yeah.
But this ice cream guy wants to fucking enjoy his work. And he can't do he's too bored to do this, so he rebels against the monotony. And I bet the first time he did drop it, and he caught it.
Yeah.
And then he realised, I can do it and caught it and make them go, and it's funny. And they like it. And then he realised another one, and then over time it built up. And that's how flair organically started.
For sure.
But flair bartending competitions, which should be called bartending tricks competitions because they just do tricks, which is cool because tricks are cool, and if any people like it, so that's awesome. But it's not flair. Flair is somebody who knows their environment very well, somebody who has worked in this exact spot.
Flair bartending.
For thousands of hours, yes.
Yeah.
So I know exactly where the Di Serrano is.
Yeah, it's not that one.
I know it's not my studio. This is not my bar, but you know what I mean? And that's the problem with event bartending, because they pay you to be a flair bartender, and you go into this environment where you've never been before, and everything is like sporadically apart, and you find yourself working like, looking for stuff. Where's that thing? Over there. And everything is really around, and then to make up for it, you end up just going like this to...
Well, that's what it comes down to. The end is that people go, oh, do the tricks.
But the tricks would happen organically if this bar was everything you knew, packed, tacked, and it was just...
Speaking of events, you're working on probably the best event bar that you can find.
This is a beautiful bar.
This is a great bar, huh? Thank you very much, PortaBar, for making these bad boys.
Well, who is it?
PortaBar.
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 Nice.
Comes in a couple of boxes. Really good, really sturdy, like working on a professional bar. But anyway.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's, I mean, flair and flair bartending is kind of, they're interlinked, but in two different, they're not the same thing. But actually, flair
if you trace back the origins, it's totally cool. But then just over time, because of many different reasons, and the history of flair is something, history of flair bartending is a presentation we do in Flair Camp. And it's something I've had the good fortune of learning by making this film, is how it got to where it got to today. Yeah. And that is, it's fucking interesting. And once you know it and you see it, it makes everything so much clearer and easy to accept and understand.
So, just before we get on to my next question, did you know flair bartending used to be called freestyle bartending?
Yes. Yeah.
And actually, the flair tricks or moves that people use behind the bar were, in many cases, used to speed up the service of the bartender. And then it got bastardized into entertainment and what we see today. But anyway, you just mentioned your film. Smooth transition there. Plug time.
It's not ready to plug.
But anyway, you want to touch on the documentary very quickly?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me why did I stop competing, and I'm sure you can already guess why after
yeah.
This is just like a rant. I've just been ranting. I've just been ranting for so long. Yeah, so obviously a lot of factors that I didn't agree with in the flair bartending competition culture, but I was still ready to make the changes necessary. Anyway, I stopped competing because of the film. Because me and you were once talking just round the corner from here, and I was saying, wouldn't it be fucking awesome to make a film about flair, like the history of flair? And I'm sure every flair bartender has had this idea. But you said to me, just fucking do it, man. Do you remember that? You went, we'll just do it then. Just do it. And I don't know why, but it resonated with me. And I fucking did it.
Started
the process. So it's been 4 years now.
Doing it, yeah.
The first 2 years was research and development.
So just roll off a couple of names of some of the people you've spoken to for research for this.
So tracing it back to like the 80s, John Bandy, the guy who taught Tom Cruise how to flair for the film Cocktail.
Yep.
Haywood Gold, the writer of the book Cocktail, which
You spoke to him?
Yeah, we contacted him, yeah. It was by email and it wasn't in depth. But he was open to a face-to-face interview, which I hope he's still open to. Which will happen in the future.
Wow.
Alan Mays, the guy who introduced juggling into the flair bartending community. Ken Hall, the guy who ran Quest for the Best Bartender, which is the origin of flair bartending competitions that is still being used today. Nothing against Ken Hall. Ken Hall, you're a very nice man and you're a legend. And at the time, I'm sure it was fantastic, but it's 30 years now. I've spoken with Christian, with Nicholas, with Sebastian, not yet, but I hope to see him soon.
Brett Seychelles?
Brett Seychelles, the guy who organised the first ever Roadhouse competition, which is a fantastic guy and an amazing story of how he got started. Yeah. I basically spoke to every single person who's had an impact in the history of flair.
Nice.
which was fantastic.
And where are you at now? Because I know you've taken some time off and now your focus is back on the documentary not in association, but obviously you've got the Flair Camp World Tour coming up. We did the first one yesterday, which we mentioned. We've got Paris coming up, which you're going to be flying around to 20 different cities around the world.
Yeah.
And using that time as well, where you can, to then start gathering footage for the documentary. So where is the documentary at these days? And can you give us a bit of actually no, don't give us a loose storyline of the documentary. Let it be a surprise. Say what you want. It's up to you.
So, it's going to be a feature-length documentary, first of all, so it's going to be roughly an hour and a half in length. I won't give you any details about it, because it's just too early.
Okay.
Obviously, the first step was to research the history of Flair. The second step was to speak to everybody involved. The third step was to find narrative themes throughout the history of Flair. And so on and so on and so on until it got to the point where we were ready to start filming and we had a concept, and then it was about raising money to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working with a production company, and the original outlet was to be an 11-man film crew. It was going to go to Netflix. Netflix were happy to be involved, but then they wanted creative control, and I wasn't happy with that, so we didn't do that. And we decided to try and make the money ourselves. After a year and a half of trying, couldn't take it anymore, and I just went to do a season back in Portugal where I first started. Just had the summer, working behind a one-station bar, making nice drinks. You came into the video in there.
That's right.
You came a few times, we had some good times.
Yeah.
And spent some time with my sister and my nephew, beautiful. Got my mind right, put the project on hold, and then in November, you sent me a message saying, do you remember the Flair Camp World Tour idea we had like 3 years ago? Well, we're going ahead with it, and it's your baby, and these are the conditions. Number one, you need to get a phone. And you gave me a phone.
Pedro's idea.
My first phone in 6 years. Fucking hell. You gave me a phone, you said this, you said that, a few conditions set, boom, boom, boom. And the first thing that came into my mind was the documentary. And we spoke about it. And the reason why we're going to these locations, or to at least some of those locations, is so I can interview the people that I need to interview, want to interview. So the tour, as well as these classes, after the classes, before the classes, and whatever free time I have, I will be tracking down these people to interview them for the film.
Awesome.
I will not be able to make the documentary from this tour.
No, of course
but
not.
I'll be able to gather enough footage to get a recce moving forward, and to assess character development, interesting angles and takes, and then obviously there'll be a reshoot. But hopefully by that point I can get some money with the footage I have to present to big brands and say who wants to be involved. Or if there's anybody watching this, big brands who wants to get involved, please, it would make everything so much easier to make this film, and it would probably shave the final time from 6 years to 2 years. So that would be nice.
I'm super excited to see it happen. And I think there's been talk around the community that everyone's saying there needs to be a film, everyone's saying, oh, there's Hey Bartender. But Hey Bartender, I haven't seen it, so I can't judge it or anything. I've heard it's really good. I'd love to see this. Flair Bartending is this underground world that when you tell the general public about, they're like, what? There's comps? And you travel? And you can make a living from this? So I think this will be a great way to connect with the general public. So looking forward to seeing it come out. Yes. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to Flair Camp World Tour. As you said, the idea came when you said that I called you up and said, do you want to go and do this? Because it was an idea that we had a few years before at Flair Camp about doing a world tour. And you mentioned to me, because after your time in Portugal, I was like, what are you going to do now? He was like, well, I want to go and teach people. I really enjoyed doing that, thinking about, traveling to different places and teaching.
Yeah, man.
So then I spoke to the team, Tom, Marek and Pedro, and said, look, Jumbles has got this idea. I think we can, instead of him just going off on his own, why don't we, getting him more on board with Flair Camp? And he runs with it. And hey presto, here we are, 20 cities planned.
Yeah, man.
So, yeah, as we spoke about at the beginning, we did London yesterday, which was without fucking sounding big head, was a raving success.
It was awesome. Yeah.
We sold out, which was great. And Paris is up next. Tell us more about what is happening on this world tour.
The world tour is just teaching bartending skills. Notice I didn't say like flair, because flair is something that will happen when you are awesome at your skills. Mm-hmm. So if your skills are at a basic, then we will teach you the basic skills and just keep working at it. And then in a year's time, after you've been mastering the basic skills, you'll be able to do those skills with flair.
Sure.
It's a slow process, but what we teach you is the tools to be able to take it to that point.
Yeah.
And we can half the amount of time it takes to get to
where you need to be.
Yeah.
And
I just love teaching.
Nice.
There's something about it.
And that's what we need. I think we spoke about it, or I spoke about it yesterday with some of the students in, sharing your skill. If you've got a skill or something which you've learned for many, many years, sharing it with others, teaching others is the best way to see it progress and to grow. And we don't see that enough in what we're doing. And the skills which are going to be taught through the Flair Camp World Tour is not just flair bartending, but is going to be around cocktails, bartending in general, is going to be talking about ingredients and ice and everything around bartending and making cocktails. So there is something for everybody, no matter what your background in bartending is. We're aiming for absolutely every single bartender on the planet, whether you work in a pub or you work in a high-end mixology bar. Like yesterday, we had 2 people that were from the Savoy Hotel in London, one from Beaufort Bar, one from the American bar booked on. We had people from Be At One, which is a party bar. We had people fly in, as we said before. We had old bartenders, but people who've been bartending for 5-6 years. People who work on beach bars, party bars, mixology bars, fun bars, the whole collective. And we can see that bartending as a community is getting a bit better again. And I do believe that the World Tour will definitely help that, because Flair Camp over the years has created this community that people kind of know each other and they travel and they see each other. And I do think that the World Tour will definitely help that, especially bringing all of these big names involved into one project is massive. Yeah. So, I mean, I want to say thank you to everybody who's agreed to be a part of the World Tour. We truly believe that, you're going to be inspiring a huge new generation of bartenders out there. And we can't wait to see what happens at the end of 2020. Thank you very much, Mr. Jumbles St Pierre, for being involved in the second podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
Exciting, huh?
It was fun.
We had a bit of a little rant in the middle there, but I hope
it's good to get things off your chest.
It is good to take things off your chest.
A nice non-alcoholic Bloody Mary will do that to you.
And we just to sort of have a bit of and for those that did get to this part of the, you can just keep watching that one.
All right.
For those that did get to the end of this podcast, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, what you want to see more of, who you would want to see next on the podcast, because Jumbles and I have spoken about lots of these subjects before, plus a shitload more, and I'm sure you guys speak about stuff, and this should be shared online with everybody, and that's the aim of these podcasts, is to share as much of our experiences online so that you guys can grow and we can create more of a community.
Big time.
Anything you want to say to the lovely people at home before we finish off? Nothing, no? Okay. Nothing to say.
I've been talking for 2 hours, man.
Sorry. Anyway, thank you very, very much for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah. Oh, good. There you go. What enthusiasm to finish it off. No, but seriously, thank you very, very much for watching. If you did get to the end, I really do appreciate it. Love it if you like, subscribe, share with your friends and family. Say a big thank you to Jumble Rice. And until next time, we'll see you then. Say goodbye, Jumbles.
Peace.